What's up, guys? Welcome to Blue Presents podcast where I discuss all things music. And today, my guest is Virtue and Vices, and they're an upcoming band coming out of Connecticut, man, featuring a good friend of mine's Dan View from my town, South Hadley, man. And today, man, we have a great conversation just about how the band got started, their latest single, Modern Day Zombie, and a very, very interesting story about their guitar player Steve spending 2 months in the hospital, basically, fighting to survive, man. And this is a great conversation. Like I said, man, you should check these guys out. Check out their website, vnvrocks.com. You can find their social media, links to the video Modern Day Zombie, as well as you can get a look at their album art for their upcoming album, Edge of Existence, which after listening to this show, man, I think this will be a greatly titled album that makes a lot of sense for them. But before we get started, man, I just want to talk about a couple things. I know as of lately I haven't been as consistent as I was months ago, man. It's kind of been a difficult up and down, man. Family, work, life, man. It kind of gets a little hectic, but I have a show in the can, and then I have another show I'm getting ready to record this Sunday that I'm very, very excited to bring to you guys. So hopefully we'll keep the consistency up, man, and I'll keep you guys updated in the loop. And if you guys have any show ideas, would like to be a guest on my show, please check me out on Facebook and Instagram, Blue Presents a Podcast, and on Twitter at Podcast of Blue, man. Just appreciate everyone who continues to keep listening to this show, man, and I hope I can keep the consistency going, keep everything going, man. But sit back, relax, listen to this show. But before we get started, you should listen to my man AJ Pelletier and why you should be listening to The Roads We Travel.
Hey everyone, AJ Pelletier here, and I'm here to talk to you about my podcast, The Roads We've Traveled. It's a podcast where every week I talk to guests and friends from music, art, comedy, and more about their journeys through life, their struggles, their joys, and everything in between. You also get to know a little bit more about me and my journey as well. So if you like podcasts about good conversations about life, or maybe you're just looking to relate to somebody about some things you may be going through as well, then The Roads We've Traveled is the podcast for you. Subscribe to us today on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you guys get your podcasts from. Check us out and subscribe to us on YouTube. And check us out at facebook.com/Roads We've Traveled Podcast. All right, everyone. Thanks.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Blue Presents a podcast where I discuss all things music and how it affects my life. And today I am joined by Virtue and Vices. What is going on, gentlemen? How are we doing today?
Good. Hey, good morning.
All right. So I'm going to introduce each one of you guys, and you just say what you do. Steve?
Yeah, I'm Steve Dell, lead guitarist.
Josh Ingraham, drums.
Eric?
I'm Eric Rozier, the bassist.
Dan?
I am Dan View, the vocalist.
All right. So, we're here to talk about your guys' music, latest single, man. But before we get started, like everybody who gets on my show, what are your top 5 artists? And we're going to start with Steve.
All right. Well, I might bend the rules a little bit and just list guitar players rather than bands.
Whatever influences you, brother.
I'll start with Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, Marty Friedman, and can't really say Marty Friedman without Jason Becker, so that's kind of a twofer right there. And then Uli John Roth is another one, and I'd say Al Di Meola is another big one.
Okay.
So those guys, are really at the top of their game, and definitely something I look up to and appreciate. So.
Hell yeah.
Some prime choices.
Yeah. All right, Josh, break it to me.
So growing up, it was more like AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, a lot of the Back in Black stuff, but a lot of Aerosmith as well. So like that 70s, 80s type of like old school rock, I guess you could say. Classic rock, as they used to call it. So grew up on that. played a lot of that. And then as far as when I got into my own type of adult life, it was more hard rock. So like Alter Bridge, Breaking Benjamin is one of my top favorite bands. Yeah, the tattoos over here. But yeah, so Shinedown, bands like that are really out there doing it, touring, paid a lot of attention to those guys and all of their drummers. Got the opportunity to take a few lessons from Sean Foyce, which is Breaking Benjamin's drummer, and the opportunity to keep in touch with him. He's a great dude. So we've just really stuck to music like that, and that's pretty much what influences me now.
All right. Eric?
All right, top 5 bands. That's something that kind of changes as you grow up. So
For sure.
right now, I'm going to go with Metallica. We got Alice in Chains, obviously. Chevelle, Dead Sarah, and Steely Dan.
Oh, yeah. I like that last one. All right, Dan?
Oh, boy. So 5. You got to limit it down to 5, huh? Okay. Top of my head, Seven Dust, Breaking Benjamin, Seether, Stone Temple Pilots, Mudvayne.
Okay, man. I like that last one and kind of excited those guys are finally getting back together, man. Definitely love to see how that energy is now. So my podcast is just about a journey into music, man. And then we're going to talk about your journey into it. And as I understand, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it is Steve and Josh who kind of started this ball rolling here. Let's talk a little bit more with you two guys. What was your idea when you guys were like, hey, let's do a band?
What age?
Yeah, I mean, we go back to diapers, man. So
Yeah, I grew up in the small town of Portland. We were in the same class. We became friends very, very young. We kind of had a trio of guys that we were in a group together. We started playing music at about 14, where I took home my first Ames guitar. So from the store Ames, I was actually able to pick up like a first act electric guitar. Went home, found tablature. It was kind of like brand new. Learned to Enter the Sandman. Called Steve. Was like, you are not going to believe this, but I can play Enter the Sandman now. So he made me play it over the phone. He said, bring the tabs and the guitar over his house. And from that point on, it was like, he was into it. He had a guitar with a speaker in it. But from that point on, it was like, wait, we could actually maybe play these songs.
yeah, tablature was a big breakthrough because prior to that, I had been given some lessons here and there, but nothing to the extent of like actually learning what I wanted to play. And so a lot of it was like by ear and just like listening to, CDs and records and cassettes and stuff like that and trying to figure it out that way. But yeah, when tablature became a thing, that was huge.
I completely understand that point because I know when I started out as a vocalist, a lot of what I did was just copying other vocalists doing what they did, bands like Poison the Well and stuff like that for me kind of like transformed how I viewed what you can do as a vocalist, and for me, I kind of like, I don't know, it's one of those things, much like your situation, you're just like, I can't believe I can do this. I've learned insert whatever artists. And that's kind of how I fell into being a vocalist. So that's kind of weird that
yeah, we were playing Hell's Bells and for those about to rock.
And believe it or not, there was no YouTube at that point.
Oh yeah.
So we're kind of, already dating ourselves here.
We would use the phone dial tone to be like the A string on the guitar. That was our tuner. So like that's how we got it done. But we were playing in my mom's dining room in a very small house. We were playing for those about to rock like really loud. All the AC/DC songs we could possibly learn. Everything we loved, and that was 14, 15, 16. We really kind of honed our skills. Then we met another good friend of ours, Nate Grover, who played bass, and another great friend of ours, Brendan, who actually had been at the Bushnell, had done professional tracks, and had been some backing vocals for Aaron Carter when he was very young. So he was a professional vocalist. And our first song was called 5 Minute Thrill because he wrote it in 5 minutes. So we did very well. We opened for 3 Days Grace, did the Webster scene, sold a ton of tickets, had a ton of people there.
Yeah.
Brendan went off to New York and California and stuff. So we then made another band and another band and another band. So we were in a good four bands where we were the core,
Yeah, so
it was a mix too. It was originals and covers, and we would do the bar scene a lot and stuff like that, and really paid our dues early on.
So my question to you, what is it about you two that just you guys can't get away from each other? It's almost like, if you really think about it, it's almost like you guys have been married for as long as you've been playing together.
It's
Like
almost,
really
I guess
think
you
about
could,
it.
20 years.
You could term it musical soulmates.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where it just gels when there's chemistry. It's
Yeah, you have
chemistry.
the Alex and Eddies and the, Joe Perry and Steven Tylers of,
of course.
the world. So we grew up and kind of learned everything we know from those type of guys. So being together,
Two
we
peas in a
realized,
pod.
yep,
Yeah.
we've been in other bands without each other,
Yeah.
and it's just been thin. It's been lacking, you know, and we kind of feed off each other writing. I think is one of the biggest things that we do together is, whatever riff he can play, I know I'm going to have drums for it. I know I'm going to have ideas for it. I know I'm going to want to write alongside of him every single time he plays something great. So I think that the years of grinding, of writing songs, hundreds of songs, has gotten us to the point where we know what level we want to be at. And then we accent each other with Steve's riffs are great. My drums enhance them. My drums are also enhanced by Steve's riffs. And then Eric is kind of the glue to everything that holds all that together. Because he comes in and makes sense of like, wait, that's all great, but you can't always follow the guitar. We have to, follow each other and stay in the rhythm section and stuff. So he helps us stay in track.
So now let's talk about like how Eric and Dan come into the equation, because it sounds like you guys have been together forever, and then you're inviting someone else into, like, let's be honest, this relationship.
Yeah.
Well, the last solid project that we had was Paragon Theorem.
Okay.
And then after that kind of, took a turn for whatever you want to call it.
The classic story of every band that's ever happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just had a singer who got a disability. He had spinal condition, and it was sad, but he just couldn't do what he loved to do anymore.
Ankylosing spondylitis. It's whatever Mick Mars had.
Yeah. So, it was sad in the sense that he couldn't do it, but we didn't want to stop. We had worked very hard for about 10 years with that group to really get it to a certain level.
3 albums
with that group, and we thought the foundation was good enough to keep moving. We kind of all met here and said, do you want to stop? And no was the answer. Then we reached out to Dan. But to take it kind of one step back a little bit, I had known another band that was in this room. I then came to the place and asked if I could rent a room. We ended up next door. That was a good 10 years ago. Steve and I put new floor down. We really decided that we needed a place to be here. The rent was cheap. So then we developed a rapport with the people downstairs to the point where when they moved out of here, the tree company that was in here, we were the first to get the room. It used to be a recording studio. It has 2 separate rooms. It has reinforced walls. So we were really excited, and then moved in here, and that's when we started using the rooms like you see here, just live room, studio room, gear. Yeah, closet of gear.
Many auditions.
Yeah, it's a very nice setup, and anybody who can't see this, which some people who are listening to this podcast probably won't be able to see this, it's a very nice setup. It's almost like a small apartment, but this maximized and designed for music. And shout out to these guys because they helped me set up this whole entire thing. So, all the great sounding audio is thanks to them, has absolutely nothing to do with me. I'm just curating it.
We all work together to get the best result.
No, for sure. I appreciate the hospitality and appreciate you guys being so cool and stuff like that. So let's talk with Eric, man. How does Eric come into the fold? How does Dan come into the fold? Let's focus a little bit more onto that real quick. And how do you guys come up with the decision that, okay, out of the last project, this is the new project?
Yeah, so I came into the fold because I was the bassist from the last project.
Okay.
I met these guys on Craigslist back when it was safe to do that.
So true.
And
not no mo.
Not even
yeah,
close.
they were looking for a bass player, and I just loved the sound. I loved everything about it, and I was like, I got to do this. So I remember auditioning. I had like a broken finger at the time too, because I went to the gym and dropped a weight on my finger, and I was like, screw it, I'm gonna play through it anyways. And then I remember I thought it went pretty well, and then I didn't hear back for like a week, and then I started pestering. It was Dan Field who was answering the ad, so I just pestered him till he was like, yeah, just come by, bring your equipment. And that's pretty much how that went from there. And then what was that, like 6-7 years with Paragon and Paragon Theorem, and then when we made the decision to keep going, I was the one who reached out to Dan View, because a while back we had talked about doing like a side project, because it was just, it was a lot of fun, but at the same time, there weren't a lot of bands doing what we were doing. Our band used to play with Vision Within quite a bit, and it was just a really nice sound. And there weren't too many bands that were doing that. It was like we'd always get stuck on, hardcore metal shows, which
I feel like that's a shot.
It's not a shot. It's not a shot.
Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, back when I was in Years of Vengeance, I think we played together.
Yes, we did.
Once or twice.
Well,
Yeah.
What we mean is the Toad's Place midnight slot with a hardcore show, and we just don't happen to sound, especially Paragon Theorem at the time, had more of a Brandon Boyd type lead singer.
Okay.
So to put that with really hard metal was, it was difficult at times to even, make it through the show.
Yeah, this is a conversation me and Dan had when we were on the way to the stores. It feels like there's two different scenes, where there's one scene that kind of, like that bar scene kind of music, and then you have like, I would say probably more the newer school kind of dudes, where it's, it's metalcore, hardcore, so on and so forth. But I also think at the same time, and I've had this conversation before, because I lived in Florida for 12 years, and in Florida, everything goes with everything. It doesn't matter what it is. Right. That's why they put coleslaw on a fucking hot dog, which is disgusting, okay? Disgusting. Let me say that out loud right now. Throw that thing in the trash. But the music scene down there is so eclectic that in the same night you go see a hardcore band, you can see a rapper, you can see a pop punk band, and then you can also see, a cover band as well, too. That's just how Florida works. It's crazy.
So you had talked about that on one of your recent podcasts, correct?
Yeah, for real. Actually, yeah. So it's just something about I don't know if it's just Florida or what it is, but up here it's about oil and vinegar kind of here sometimes.
It's about whoever's putting the show together. So
for sure,
once a year we used to put together a show with Radio 104, which is our like local alternative station, and we would start the night with acoustic, and we would end with like death metal at the end.
Yeah.
And we would just run the gamut of like light to hard. And it was a really great show, because you'd have a lot of people from different
flavors.
For sure. Different fans coming through. And we used to do that, but it's just very difficult for at least in this area, it's difficult for the places that are putting that show together to say, okay, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to book you again.
Yeah. I also think, too, is when you talk about different scenes, you're talking about different aspects of what I would call, like, respect. You get what I'm saying? Because there's certain people who are going to be there from the first band to the last band, and then there's going to be people who are there for insert whatever their friend is, as opposed to kind of just checking out and giving respect to every band that steps on that stage. Been there, done that plenty of times.
I think one of the coolest things we saw was we had an idea where we crowdfunded merch for the last band, and we promised everyone, if you donate, you're going to get some merch. So we ended up sending out our merch that we got, to pretty much anyone who donated, which kind of was like, they got it for free, so to speak, in a sense. But then they all wore it. They all showed up to the show. So when we would do the 104 show, it's like no matter what band you were there to see, there was somebody there with our band shirt on it. And then we would, donate gear and stuff that everyone can use. And it really helped advertise everything that we were doing. So it was a good opportunity to get your merch out there, and everyone wore it and responded well to it.
No, that's what's up, man. So now let's talk with Dan, because Dan, you were in a band yourself that, is no more. Yeah. The guys of A Vision Within. That's how I met you. Because I remember the first time was the snowstorm at Cook's. Let me tell you something. First off, let me give you a backstory to this. So my wife hates me now because of that show, okay? I mean, there's a lot of other reasons why she hates me, but she hates me in particular for that show because we ended up having to go around. And at the time, we were driving like a Nissan Altima, okay? And we ended up getting stuck for a bit and having to backtrack in order to get around to Cooks and stuff like that. And she told me, if you ever do that to me again, I will beat your ass. Understandable. A few drinks, when we got there, she was a little bit more comfortable. But at that moment, she was
Wasn't
pissed.
the guy from, I can't remember, Soulfly? Or Gargantua Soul.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now you're
he was there, and he flew in from Arizona for some reason to play that show, and he was like closing it out, and it was like a complete snowstorm. Like it started picking up when we were playing, and I remember some of the bands jetted out early so that we could make it home okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that like one dude painted up in orange and like fake eyeballs all over his body.
Oh my God,
You remember
bro.
that? And he had like the orange like top hat.
And then he ended up trying to fight everyone at the end of the night.
I wasn't there for that because I wanted to make it home safe.
Yep. So, to give you a quick backstory, there was a show that when I was in Years of Vengeance we played, and there was a gentleman who flew in from another state, and I forget what his name was, but he reminded me of homeboy from Five Finger Death Punch.
The lead singer?
Yeah. He reminded me of Ivan Moody, like quite a bit.
Yeah, that last name was perfectly fitting.
Yeah. Anyways, shots fired again. Anyways, he was fucking jacked. That was the first thing. But you can definitely tell he was like in his 50s, and whatever vibe he was on was not of this planet and whatnot. And when he first got there, he was
it just probably wasn't the legal kind. That dude was seriously on something.
Let's hope he doesn't listen to this. Anyways, because I feel like he's the type of guy that would show up to your house, would find all our addresses and be like, "What's up? Remember me?" It's just like, oh my God.
Only if he shows up in like a wife beater and cut off shorts, then I would invite him over. I'd be like, dude, let's do this and then film it.
I'm trying so hard. But yeah, no, by the end of the night, he tried to fight everyone because he was pissed because he couldn't. It was a snowstorm. There was maybe 20 people at this show, and he was expecting some type of payment, I think, from Mark, and yeah, it didn't go well.
Nice.
Yeah,
It didn't go well.
You're playing a dive bar in Connecticut in a snowstorm. What do you want?
I want to make.
I don't know.
I want to make it home safe.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that was definitely a scary trip, to and from. And on top of that, my very not so happy wife about the trip.
Yeah. Well, those were the days. Vision Within was the band I was in at the time. I was with them for about 7 years, and to Eric's point, we had played quite a few times with Paragon Theorem, built a rapport and a relationship. So when this project became available and Eric reached out, I didn't hesitate at all. It was defining of whether, my vocals could fit, their style, because they had, again, that Brandon Boyd style, and they were looking to branch out in different directions, and whether my vocals could match that or not. So, unfortunately, at the time when they invited me, Steve was recovering from a near-death experience.
Yeah, I was down and out, man. I was laid up in the hospital for 60 days.
Damn, what happened?
60 days, yeah. Well, even the doctors are still kind of scratching their heads on that one. But apparently it seemed that at some point I had an ulcer. Mm-hmm. And when it went to go heal itself, it caused a blockage.
Ooh.
So I was going to see my primary physician like constantly, like, and it was misdiagnosed as IBS.
Oh God. Yeah.
So I was given, try this pill, try that pill, try this. And they never got to the root of the problem until I basically just collapsed one day and wound up in Hartford Hospital and 2 surgeries. They had, for the first 2 weeks I was there, they had to pump me full of nutrition. It was that bad. Like, they wouldn't even do surgery on me for 2 weeks. They had,
Wow.
because I wouldn't have been able to recover.
Essentially, his stomach stopped working.
Damn.
And then it backed up and filled with bile, and they had to actually pump that out. And then he was malnourished from not eating.
Yeah.
So then you have to get him back to health for a month, and then you can then perform surgery to reroute everything and connect the stomach directly to, his actual intestines. So then, funny part about that, and none of it's funny, but like we were all here trying to figure out how we move forward, right? Because Steve's down, I'm going to see him at the hospital. We're all here, and a couple of the songs are actually some of guitar parts that I wrote because while Steve was down, I was lending my any type of guitar talent that I had to creating some new songs. So a couple of the riffs were liked and used and became songs, which is super exciting for me to be a drummer and to just kind of hide in a closet playing a guitar, thinking of melodies and writing stuff. But I'm
Crawler, right?
Yep, definitely Crawler, and then Pull the Trigger. I believe the verse.
What about Live in Infamy? Did that start off?
I believe so. There's one of the, I believe 3 songs total that ended up having guitar parts that were written by me. So it was exciting to not only fill in for a minute, but then succeed with that. And then when he comes back, it's like, here's some stuff.
So
make it better.
I got to insert here, man, because you guys have been together the longest. Like, how fucking scared were you? Because you got to think you've known this guy for as long as you do, and here he is struggling. We survive right now,
definitely
basically.
all were pretty worried because we had shot a music video and with the old band Paragon Theorem, and during the shoot Steve would not really come upstairs. He looked terrible. We were all worried about him. So what was actually happening is the stomach was actually backing up during that time.
He was becoming septic.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's terrible.
So if he didn't make it to the hospital, his stomach would have exploded and he would have most likely died.
So when I went to the ER, a week out from that, I had an endoscopy scheduled where they'd send the camera down and look around.
They would have seen it then,
But the lady in the ER said I wouldn't even have made it that week
That's fucking nuts, man.
if I waited.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Him and his mom basically came to the conclusion it was time to call the ambulance and figure it out. And
Yeah.
Because I was throwing up like multiple times a week, and like I changed my diet multiple times, and no
Yeah.
matter what I ate, I would get sick. And clearly, the doctor wasn't helping me at all.
Yeah, and you and I were going back and forth with remedies because
Yeah.
I actually have real IBS, not fake
Yeah.
one. So
I don't have IBS, but because I'm a diabetic, I take was taking metformin, and I don't know if you know, metformin kind of messes with people's stomachs. So like, there's times where, and I talked about this on my last podcast. There's times where I can't find a bathroom fast enough.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a very real thing. Like I know certain people are probably laughing their asses off. They're like, you guys are shitting yourselves or whatever.
Right.
You know, but for us, this is like it's a scary thing. And for Steve, it sounds even horrible. The fact that you don't know, 2 months in a hospital. First of all, let's talk about the medical bills fucking alone with that shit. It's astronomical. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure your insurance was like, at some point you're tapped out, brother. You know what I'm saying? You know? So
luckily we had some people like, his job and stuff were pulling for him and doing what they needed to do to keep him on staff. And I, went to see him. Eric went to see him. Like we once we saw that he was being nursed back to a good nutritional health, his family was there. The wing he was on wasn't great, but he couldn't eat real food. He had to be fed through a tube, eat ice chips, and then watch nothing but commercials about food.
I had IVs, in and out of both arms, tubes up my nose, down my throat. I mean, it was not a fun.
all right. So when you finally get out of the hospital, like, what's the first thing you're eating?
Well, it was
a slow process.
It was a lot of soup, and I couldn't just eat solid food.
He had to rebuild his stomach.
Yeah.
It was messed up.
Because I imagine you just can't go, let me get a double cheeseburger, everything on it, fries,
Well, the stomach,
large Coke,
right.
The
stomach being a muscle, he actually couldn't do that. It would have been really bad. The Jello and all of the stuff that was not solid had to go first. And then I actually had to go to Steve's house and see him for the first time in probably 20 years with no calluses on his fingers from playing guitar.
I didn't get to play at all.
Yeah, he basically withered away up until he went down. So I went over there, grabbed his EVH amp from Guitar Center because he had recently ordered one before he went down. They were going to restock it. So I went up there and I'm like, listen, let me pick up the guitar. They knew who I was. They've seen us together. So they gave me the amp.
Hey, like I said, man, you guys are like a married couple attached at the hip,
seriously.
man. It is what it is, man. But
I love it, yeah.
Like Dan said, man, if you don't have people who have a like mind, you're not gonna succeed in this. And it seems like you two have been like stuck together.
Yep,
and I completely understand that when you find somebody you work with well, it's hard to break that bond unless something fucking major and serious happens.
Yeah,
but
I'm really grateful for these guys sticking around because it was a rough time and they could have just been like, all right, we're done, screw it,
Right. It's like,
Instead,
Steve will be all right.
Steve,
Anyway,
you can't do that. You're on meal ticket, man.
yeah, so I took the amp to his house, set them all up, and then literally he did what he did from his younger years, but he condensed it into a couple months of like, I'm going to sit down here and play because it's all I can do. He could barely walk and get around. He was weak. So, you have to regain strength. It took him at least 90 days of being at home, barely getting around to just...
Yeah, we had the time
Come
to
back to life.
practices. Like when we would come here, we had to make sure that we got certain amount of material done in the time before Steve started kind of crashing, so that we can respect his time and respect his health at the same time.
Yeah, man, that sounds like a really difficult process, especially recording in the process. Steve, do you feel like that whole entire situation, you feel like you got this out on the record? Because, they always say an artist who's suffering displays the suffering through the music they write.
Well, yeah, in a way. I mean, when it comes to playing and writing, it's always been a healthy outlet for my emotions, for sure.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, this record, there's a lot of stuff on there that, I like, but for some reason, like where I was mentally, it's not, I don't know how to say, I just kind of wish I put more into it than I did, but I'm still happy with what.
Yeah, you
Album
wish you
2,
could
baby.
have.
That's what album 2 is
Album
about.
2, yeah.
He put as much as he could.
Right.
Yeah, but I
And,
mean, you got to think. I mean, you didn't really
I wasn't at 100%. Even when I got out of the hospital, it's not like I'm,
Raring to
jogging
go.
a mile or something.
Exactly,
like I'm,
It took you a good year.
Yeah,
I would
for
say
sure.
a good year to look like this again and look healthy and be able to use weights at home and really, like, that's the other thing I can say is Steve really put in the work to come back, because he was home lifting weights. He was home, not laying down, so to speak. He was getting his calluses back. He was more determined than ever. And you can definitely tell in this record, there's some of me, there's some of Steve, there's some of all of us coming together to write a whole new style. And I think one of the interesting things about the album itself is that there's a lot of different types of songs. There's not just a heavy feel to the entire record. There's not just a light acoustic feel to the entire record. There's actually a mixture of I think everything we all love is poured into this one thing that makes the new album.
And that was the other tricky thing too. When I first started writing and having Dan on board, it's like, well, I haven't really ever jammed with this guy. Like, I kind of have an idea of what he's capable of with his playing, with his previous band. But as far as like a direction, I definitely didn't want it to sound too much like our old project.
And can he write?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
we didn't know.
Yeah.
He could have showed up and not wrote anything.
One of the things that we did was that I thought was really cool was we took the first song that we wrote, which I think was One to Blame, and we recorded it in 2 or 3 different keys and had Dan sing over it to figure out what the best key for his vocals were.
Yeah.
And I
'Cause
think we were also...
I remember asking him about that
Yeah,
too.
like, does he need to be half step down? Did he need to be in standard tuning, drop D? Like, what's going to work?
Yeah.
So we asked him to, like, what he recorded everything.
So it pretty much sounds like,
And we landed on drop D. That's basically been...
Sounds like through Steve's issues and what he was going through at the time, you guys found kind of like another way to kind of work with things, with you writing guitar, trying to figure out how things are going to work with Dan and stuff like that. That's a lot to overcome as a band, man, for real. And like Steve said, you guys could have said, fuck it. We're going to continue to keep doing whatever the fuck we're
I
doing.
wouldn't have blamed him either. I mean, I was down and out, dude.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it was definitely life or death.
If you look at the title of this album that's coming out, it makes perfect sense in comparison to that situation and to where even our, formation as a band. I mean, it's called The Edge of Existence. Yeah. I mean, at that point, Steve's at the,
Yeah, you don't know what... Steve doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
We have a brand new singer driving down an hour from Massachusetts to jam with us, and our guitarist is in the hospital for 60 days. So, like, the 2 months, it was great because we all did what we could, came together and wrote songs while he was down. And this way, we figured, too, it not only gave Steve something to look forward to, but now instead of sitting and laying there and watching cheeseburger commercials without being able to eat them, now he's listening to riffs that are created by me that are going to be obviously better the minute he touches them. But at least there's audio coming his way. He knows the band's working hard, and we're all pushing forward to,
his eventual return and stuff.
And we just all had faith that he was going to not only get better, but come back stronger than ever.
And see, this is what I'm talking about, why I love doing this podcast, because it's stories like this that you hear that you don't really hear from people's aspects, that just shows you how hard it really is to be in a band sometimes. You know what I'm saying? From you two guys being together as long as you guys having, and then having this major life event happening with Steve, and then you guys just all kind of coming together to write something. These are the type of things I love to talk about, because while it's rough and you never know, you know, I'm sure at that time, Steve, you're fearing what's next, what's going to happen, how am I going to make it through this?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it wasn't until after we really started coming together and jamming, like maybe after we wrote our first few songs together and things started to really kind of gel. It was almost like driving through like a fog, and then the fog breaks, and then it's just like nice and sunny, you know? It's like, okay, I can kind of see like where things are now and where we can go with it.
At least it didn't end like The Fucking Mist. Have you seen that movie before?
Yeah. Book was better.
That ending still got me though. Yeah. Every time. That ending gets me every time. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to cut off.
It's okay.
But like, cause this is such a serious thing, man. And you know, like.
No, it was uplifting to have a singer come in, and not only could we found out very quickly that he can write, and he can write right in front of you, and he'll ask you what you think of it, which is something different. In the past, we always had kind of like music that we'd give our vocalist, and he'd kind of like go somewhere, come back with lyrics, and it may take months sometime to actually hear it back. So with Dan being so forward in writing and being so experienced, seasoned, very motivated. So we were waiting for, that last member to really complete the energy level, the determination that we all had to put in all the work we've done since we were 14 years old to have it pay off and have the world hear.
And the other aspect of Dan being on board too is that there's always been an element of aggression in my playing, and he can match that vocally. And we haven't really had that. It's mostly been like clean singers in the past, but he could do both, which is great.
Yeah. So Dan, let's kind of all of us transition into talking about the first single, Modern Day Zombie. And I'm going to start with Dan, because lyrically, to my mindset, it kind of sounds like you're expressing some feelings about the certain time period we've been kind of going through when it comes to the pandemic. So if you'd like to expound upon that, or
sure, So Modern Day Zombie it's about mental health. It's about self-realization of where you are in terms of your own struggles. Obviously, COVID put us all in a place where we were isolated. Even myself, mentally, it put me at a place to really question, what triggers me, what puts me in a place where, I'm not healthy. And, in particular, this song, addresses that in a way. So, through the pandemic, it was the first time where I couldn't escape. I had a bad day at work, I'm going to go to the movies, or I'm going to go hang out with my friends, or I'm going to go and do this. And what you realize when you can't do that anymore, how much of your emotional state you put off. Yeah. And you put off understanding, and you put off resolving, because now you're distracting yourself. You're putting yourself in a place where I'm going to deal with that later. Well, this song is about not having a later, not having an opportunity to kick that down the road.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of the song kind of starts that way. Will I ever see, the sun again? Just kind of, it's just kind of saying, am I going to see life again? Basically, the sun being the life that we all had, because me and you are parents, and before the pandemic, it was whether you're taking your kids, like my daughter does drama club, other insert things that the kids do in school and stuff like that, and now you're coming home every day to your wife, whatever her situation is, being home, the kids being home all day long, staring at a computer screen. And then now, like you said, you had a shitty day at work, you come home, and it's just like, okay, so what the fuck do I do now? Yeah. Kind of.
Nothing anchors your mental state more than realizing somebody else's. And, I live in a situation where mental health is a very prevalent issue. This is where I'm going to kind of go off the beaten path a little bit.
You're good, man.
I live with a mother-in-law who's paralyzed. She's paraplegic. And she struggled with mental health all throughout her life. And, she's tried her best to handle that. But the way that she's done with resolving is exactly what I talk about in the song. You escape. She moved 40 different times. My wife has never lived in the same home for longer than 6 months throughout her lifetime. And that's put some stress on her. My wife she's a rock, iron. Like I've never seen her mentally crack. But her mother, is a different story. Now that she's paraplegic and she can't run, she can't move. There's stuff that she's done to herself, done, to her body, to an extent where, for a lack of better words, has required medical intervention to a point where we question her mortality. And so mental health is very deep in kind of my writing for this song. And there's another song on the record called Gone. I'm sorry, not Gone. I'm having a brain fart right now. Thank you. Not Alone. Mm-hmm. That dovetails into that. It's about, reaching out to her and those that are struggling with that condition, that you're not alone, that there's help out there, that, there is a better way. And, modern day zombie is kind of like that first step of realizing you're there.
Yeah.
You're at that negative place.
And I completely understand what you're talking about, where you kind of realize everyone's own mental health. You know what I'm saying? We've had to, especially in my household, we've had to confront that on two different fronts. Mm-hmm. One we kind of always knew about, another one we kind of didn't expect, but, I think through some of this pandemic, what we really needed to learn as a group of people, as a human race in general, is that we need to love each other more. We need to have more respect for each other. And we also need to respect everybody's space, area, and how they think, because not everybody is the same way. Just because you or I may be able to get up every day and deal with the bullshit that we deal with, our kids, our wives, our family members cannot all deal that same way, And everything from nieces and nephews I knew were having issues with being so isolated, to my kids having their own issues dealing with being not with their friends and stuff like that. It's a difficult thing, man. This year has been a fucking war of attrition, like, to be honest, And then hear what's going on with Steve, man. It sounds like you guys fucking went through the ringer, like, insanity.
I also have a 5 and 7-year-old at home and a wife, so I dealt with all of the things you said, just them being home. My wife worked from home for an entire year, which she's still just kind of trickling in one day a week now. After a whole year, the kids learned completely remote for kindergarten for my son and second grade for my daughter. Mm-hmm. So overcoming all of that and being, the stable, solid rock of like Dan's wife is what I am to my family. So, I had to come home and be ready to handle those issues as well as everything I dealt with at work. Mm-hmm. So one of the best things about Dan is that we can write some music, tell him a story, combined with his way it affects him emotionally, plus all of his lyrical ability, and then you're able to feel like you said something through Dan, who then made it perfectly translate the way you wanted it to. So having him be able to do that while we practice, write, and then come out exactly like we wanted is I think a really good thing for this whole entire group that you'll hear on every song. Every single one of us is putting, I would say, 110% into writing the songs, breaking them down, saying what we don't like about them. We do a pre-pro process. It's pre-production. We get that song demoed and then we play it back and say what sucks about it. And then we change stuff. And we are probably one of the few bands you'll see that'll record something and sit on it for over a year before you ever hear it, because we're not going to let something out that will just, be poor quality.
Something that we're not proud of.
Right. We're not proud of it. Sure. It'll be poor quality and it'll fizzle away in a week and you'll get less views. People don't care because the quality is horrible. So.
Yeah, man. And I definitely think that's another thing too. Like, I think certain bands maximize their time during the pandemic, seeing a couple of my friends who, a time when nobody's playing shows, get signed to a fucking record label is probably like the most amazing thing in the world, because it's just like nobody's able to do anything, but somehow you were still able to get in there and show everybody what you can do, and a record label took an opportunity on that, So kind of just pose this question to you guys. Are you hoping to see something like that for you guys? A record label of interest, or, maybe an opportunity to shine in front of a record label? What is your guys' mindset when it comes to that kind of thing?
I think that'd be nice, but after doing this for so many years and so many different bands, I think the straight up answer is only if it makes sense for us. Right?
True.
Well, there's so much independence in being able to release everything yourself. We found that buying the right gear, having the right tools, we can achieve a lot of the pro quality that a lot of people, you would have to pay them to produce for you.
Mm-hmm.
Or go in the hole. Like
Right.
they'll pay up front and then you owe them that money back.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of things that
It'd have to be somebody that is very like-minded.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why this works for us, because we're like-minded, and that's why this has been smooth, to move forward and work well attitude-wise with these fellas, is because we're like-minded. So if we were to get a record label or somebody would to express interest, we would have to be on the same page, and it would have to be up front.
A lot of it too would be support, if you ask me. A lot of it's just, okay, a label would pay for a tour where you go across the nationwide tour and play with Live Nation and all that stuff. But everything else, we found we don't really need that support. We don't need it for recording. We don't need it for mixing. We don't need it for video stuff. We don't need it for marketing. We've bought in the same gear that everyone's using, done it ourselves, worked extra hours, put in the 20 hours a week in the part-time job that we have to make this band. So we choose to put in the extra work rather than rely on someone else to make sure it's a success. So I think a label is something that would really have to be in a support role, for sure.
Distribution and capital would be our key. It would have to be somebody that would be able to not just, promise us the world, but to deliver. Like, hey, I can get you on the stage with these guys where you don't have to sell 5,000 tickets. I mean, it would have to be.
We've found some pretty creative ways to go down to the casino ourselves, meet the sound guys, make friends with them, and talk to them, and be offered things like, hey, we may have a band cancel last minute because of a snowstorm. Can we call you? So we've gone to pretty great lengths to make.
Now the question is, are those relationships still there after COVID?
And
that's what we're working on now.
We're kind of working on who's rising from the ashes right now, trying to put shows together.
Yeah, and that's a difficult thing because now you're seeing venues close and stuff like that. Venues who are always prominent to bring local artists in and give them that chance to shine on stage. So how do you guys feel about stuff like that? Seeing a place like Cook's kind of close. Cook's was a staple for a long while of giving bands that nobody really knows an opportunity to really shine. I've played several shows at Cook's. And it was a great vibe. It was a great stage. It was a great opportunity sometimes,
I think it comes down to what you were saying earlier about the divisions that occur in the scene. I think that those divisions were, you could survive those divisions in the past where you had a show where you could play, where people just wanted to play metal and they wanted to do hardcore. Those venues are slowly dying because those venues look at crowd draw. And so now, these venues like Cook's that, didn't necessarily bring in thousands of cover bands or didn't make that their service model, there has to be now some leeway of those bands to work with cover bands or work with bands that might be a little more mainstream to keep these venues alive, because that's moving forward. That's all who's going to survive.
And that's terrible because the simple fact is you got to think we all haven't been out and in so long, and I feel like every show for at least the next year and a half should be sold out because we cherish it so much more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, think about the opportunities that you have. It's just much in the same space as like professional wrestling and stuff like that. We talk about like the bigger companies, but the smaller companies are the ones that suffer the most because they don't have those opportunities to have those local shows. I personally feel like since everything opened up, you know what I'm saying? I feel like every bartender should be getting every goddamn tip. Every band should be getting every opportunity to play out. And we should have that because we lost that for so long, man. And I think about it because a lot of times me and my wife used shows as a date night. Mm-hmm. That was a date night for us to get out, listen to a couple of our friends' bands, jam out, have a few beers, and then go home to our kids and be parents. You know what I'm saying? That moment to escape.
I think
has been gone.
I think it's kind of old school now. It's like up to the bands again to not only, bring the people together. But yeah, I think it's up to the bands again to come together as bands, put shows together, contact bars yourself, put 5 people on a bill, and get people there again. Because bands come together, they bring people together, then they'll support their place. I think a place, like a place like Bleachers, like we're going there in August simply because we're fortunate to get the opportunity to play again. We're gonna grab at every show we can to let everyone know who we are, to let them hear, and we're not afraid to pay our dues and to play every single show we possibly can.
Yeah, man, because it sounds like with your guys' experience, as long as you guys have been around here, let's be honest, some bands, feel they have a certain stature, and it sounds like you guys, no matter what, even though you guys have been around for a while, but with a new project, you understand it's like it's another rebuilding process. It's an opportunity to show yourselves out there again. And once again, this is why I don't understand why like certain places right now that are booking shows and I don't know if you guys seen it. I've seen it, especially like my Facebook notifications over the last week have fucking exploded with like this show. Exactly. Yep. Like this show's booking, whether it's a show that's been pushed back or a show that's, just got booked, man. It's absolutely insane. But, you're seeing bigger bands. You're not seeing more local shows, and that's the part that's kind of sad.
So there is a group in Connecticut that's been buying up some of these local venues. They bought out this what was it? Manic Productions. Yeah, they bought out the Space. They do. They bought out the Palace Theater in New Haven. It's now the College Street Music Hall. That they bought up. They started with that along with a couple other. They were a booking agency for a long time, but they survived through the pandemic by doing these like farm gigs with like comedians and all sorts of things. But they started buying up some of the more local venues, like the Space, which was a place we used to have great rapport with. Like they had a nice 300-person ballroom, and without a place like that, it's more difficult because a place like that gave us the leeway to do a show with not just this type of music. They gave us, they really just gave us the keys to the castle and said, just make it, have fun with it. It was $500 to rent the venue. That's nothing. And, without places like that, we're really getting kind of strapped for where we can go.
Yeah, man. And that's, like I said, that's like a difficult thing because, you would think after all the bullshit, everybody would just be like, we're booking you. You get the fuck over here, and you know what I'm saying. We don't care. Just bring however many people, because it should sound like a slam dunk at this point. Because nobody's been able to do that shit.
We're also innovating right now, specifically because we're pivoting out of the pandemic, and what we're finding is if we put the product on social media, we can really rely on the platforms out there to spread it around a lot better than we even could if, say, the pandemic never happened and we were getting shows. We can actually do a better job with a great music video, and spread that across the entire country. Something like Facebook, they give you the tools to be able to do that. So that's what we did. We held content for 2 years. So we spent 2 years refining our sound, letting Steve recover, working on song after song after song, finding our style, and then eventually recording the 10-song album. So it's something we've done is refine this process over the last 10 years, and Dan was doing it in other bands and we were doing it in this band. But the best thing that we're good at is building from the ground up, because it's all we've ever done in every single group we've ever been in, even individually. So we're not afraid to do it, and we actually have a process for it that kind of streamlines everything. So we figured if we could refine the product first, then we could then release a quality product that hopefully people like, and then we'll follow it up with a great album.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the Modern Day Zombie video. Talk about the company that helped you guys put it together. talk about some of the concepts you guys came up with for this music video, and why is Dan covered in white paint?
That one was all Dan. The white paint was all Dan. He did that in his basement.
I think you took some inspiration from a guy
Did I?
in Cooks.
Oh, yeah, no.
It all comes back around. I'm just fucking with you.
Honestly, my inspiration was The Ring, to be honest.
Okay.
But no, the music video again was produced by Daniel Field through his marketing company. Dan was fantastic. Really worked with us for a very long day to film that, and kind of we evolved the idea. The idea originally was supposed to be a collapsing room where the walls kind of closed in on us as we played. But as we filmed it and as we threw in additional ideas, it kind of evolved to what you see now. The white paint and the creepy dude, that was actually only supposed to be a sidebar shot in the background throughout the video, but Dan thought that the footage was great and he wanted to kind of splice it in and out throughout the video. But that was literally me filming that on a high-res phone, in which I took a glass window and kind of filmed it through a window, put up a black background, covered myself.
I was going to say, it kind of looked like it was you were coming out of a television screen.
That's
where
exactly
you were just like, yeah, for sure. It's interesting. And then,
That's in the very first scene, right?
Yeah. So my next question is, how many times did you have to punch the wall before you actually broke through? That's a dumb question.
That was one take.
Was it? Yeah.
Well, we only built one wall.
Yeah.
Well, we constructed the whole entire room, so like that.
Wow.
Those are 3-sided walls, and Dan and Eric were here actually, using 2x4s to construct the entire wall, putting sheetrock up. We were all doing things individually to make the entire day happen, and then when it finally came together, it was like 9 hours of shooting, and we were able to use the zombie thing that Dan recorded as one of the main features in the video. And what you'll find is it kind of tells a story of, Groundhog Day, the walls closing in, wanting to break out of there.
Yeah.
And then it's great because as you move along, you kind of see Dan, tell his perspective of that crazy zombie feeling inside the TV, as well as trying to live your normal life playing with your band in a room.
Just trying to get out.
Yeah, but once again, it goes back to the whole thing of being inside the house. I mean, what did we really have besides being inside the house, besides Netflix documentaries and shit like that? Exactly. Yeah,
we had this.
Exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, not for everybody. Everybody who isn't a musician, you had things like Netflix.
Well, even for the first couple months, like we took a hiatus because we were, we didn't want either of us or our families to get ill, and we hesitantly came back, and
I had to go to work every day because I was considered an essential worker, so I had to.
Yeah, I totally understand. I had
to be there every day.
Yeah, I was out here the whole fucking pandemic. I worked for FedEx, so I was out here the whole time, and it was like, so usually we don't see numbers like what we were seeing during the pandemic, unless it's a holiday, and this was worse than any holiday I had ever worked, and to the point where it really made me question how much longer I wanted to be there. And then finally I was able to find a job and was able to transition from that because it just became downright just abusive, with the way they wanted you to work and stuff like that. And I think that's something people forget about the pandemic, is that we were all put in this position, and like you said, the walls are closing in on us and we're not able to escape from that, so what can you really do? And once again, I give you guys kudos because of how much work you guys put into that video, but also at the same time, you made a music video where it made sense with the lyrics, because you get so many bands who just, okay, we're just doing a music video, we're outside in a field, there's a trash can on fire or some crazy shit like that. You guys really took the lyrics and the song.
Cutting the trash can fire.
It was like we had a whole homage to it. Yeah.
Well, we got to give a lot of credit to Dan Field from Momentum Marketing. So for those of you who don't know, Dan was actually in this group for a long time. He was the rhythm guitarist with us in the last group, and he transitioned over. And one of the reasons that we were able to keep going while Steve was in the hospital was that Josh would come with a riff. Him and Dan would sit together and write, and then Josh would get on the drums, and we kind of hashed something out. And so Dan was very familiar with, what we're doing, what direction we're trying to do, and what we're trying to show with this. So his ideas were, kind of paramount to what.
I mean, it goes back to the whole argument. I've said this on, I don't even know how many shows. If someone who doesn't understand you is not going to give you the best effort, so it's kind of a weird blessing in disguise that you guys got somebody who completely understood your vision, knew where you guys were coming from, and was able to help you guys put that together in video form. Because it's something difficult to do, man. A lot of people are just like, okay, we've got the money, we can shoot the music video, but are you guys getting out the message you want to get out there? Are you guys getting out the look that you want to get out there?
I think by stopping and taking it slow with everything that we did, it really let us do that. Like in other situations, you're in a rush to get stuff out. You want everyone to know you're excited. But we had made that mistake literally 15 times in our life. Like we weren't going to do it this time. We wanted to hold until we had quality. And the One to Blame video that you'll see is actually like a year and a half old. But it's been re-edited and, it fits in perfectly with the next release. But we, like I said, sat on that because quality is more important to us than anything. And that's with songwriting, that's with recording the albums, that's with videos.
It's with our pictures.
Yep. And Momentum Marketing, Dan Field let us bring all of those ideas together and spent a lot of time that you normally wouldn't get from someone who you're strictly just in a business relationship with.
Yeah, for sure.
He wanted to over deliver for us because he's just that type of guy.
Yeah, and it was the attachment towards it, the love for you guys, and that's a positive thing, man. Because sometimes, once again, like I said, they could have easily been like, okay, how much you guys paying us? We'll take your money and give you whatever the fuck we decide giving you.
Exactly.
But instead, you got a little extra on it because there was someone who was close and attached to you on that.
And you can tell when you watch it, I think.
No, for sure.
The color grading and the white balancing and the quality that went into that 4K footage is, it's top notch. So
no, for real.
Dan's our guy. He's always most likely going to be the guy who does every video production for us.
Nothing wrong with that.
He's someone definitely you can check out. Momentum Marketing Creative Studio on YouTube, momentummarketing.com as well. He has.
You can always just ask us too. And
yeah,
we'll send
you
you
reach out to any of us. You can find us all on Facebook, and we'll.
And I can for sure speak to how nice these guys are, and they came in here and they helped me get set up and whatnot. So shout out to you two, Josh and Eric, for really putting help in just getting this podcast off the ground.
Steve and I supervised.
We needed good looks as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Steve just brought that sultry voice of his.
He's an old soul for sure.
So before we get out of here, man, I got a couple more questions for you guys. The first thing is what are you guys hoping when people hear this record finally? What are you guys hoping besides obviously hearing what Steve went through, what you guys all went through during the pandemic? What are you hoping to get across sound wise and message wise to everybody who's listening?
Change.
I think change and also unity. One of the things you'll hear is, I think, everyone coming together to produce the highest quality they can in the songs. We really cared if the chorus didn't mesh well with the verse. We really cared if the guitar was on the showboatier side, and we wanted to kind of rein it in and do solos that, were a little more refined, designed to the hard rock type style of music. Paragon Theorem was more of the neoclassical solos mixing with, the Brandon Boyd singing and like this aggressive rock. Now we've kind of honed it into, I think, the best version of what we feel music is to us. We always like to create what we listen to. We like to create what we want to hear. That is really, I think, Steve and I's motivation to always creating it. But I want everyone to hear how much work went into the record, because I think you'll hear it. You'll hear how everyone came together, and you're going to hear all different types of styles of songs that eventually, by the time we get to number 2, which we are already working on in the background, album number 2. Yep. Mm-hmm. Once we get there, I think you'll find a very, very honed in sound that we've really refined after the first record.
For sure. Yeah, we want people to feel influenced, to not be boxed into a particular genre or style. I mean, you can hear this. One song could sound like it came straight out of the 90s. You can have one song that sound like it came, out in today's modern day style. I mean, we all brought our different influences, and, to Josh's point, we we were very meticulous in how we wanted it to sound going into the album, and so everything has been intentional, and we want people to take that and run with it, whether it be influenced or not, or enjoy it. But, you know, the other end of it is we wanted people to be able to put it in, and, you know, maybe one song's not great for grandma right now, but maybe grandma likes One to Blame.
Yeah.
But maybe grandson might like Antagonize. You know, it's an album where we tried to hit all the buttons, because that's our influences. Like I could listen to Jim Croce, but then I could listen to DMX, or
Nothing wrong with that.
We considered the listener, I think, for the first time in our musical career. Honestly, we sat down and said, you know, what is it like to consume our songs as somebody else? And, you know, one of the first feedbacks we got was that the newer songs are much more digestible. And I thought that was a great way to put it, because that's what we were going for. Is we want people to not feel like, you know, okay, they're going to be right with the same 5 songs on Octane or something like that. You know, we want it to be our style, the older sound mixed with the new sound, and then everybody coming together to just create this awesome group of songs. And we actually wrote more songs than we selected for the record, which is another thing we didn't ever do before. So really taking time to say, what is someone hearing when they hear us? You know, why is this a good song? Why do we believe in it so much? And to be honest, you know, Modern Day Zombie wasn't even a single to us until, you know, much more recent in the process. It kind of like shined itself right through all the other songs and became something we all felt someone would get, okay, what is one song that encompasses a lot of our style in one message? And that Modern Day Zombie is that song. So,
which is interesting, because after hearing some of the records you guys played for me today, it definitely is completely different from a lot of the other songs on the record. You can definitely get a feel for what you guys do, but still, when I've listened to the record, there's some things I wasn't expecting. You know what I'm saying? You know, with Dan, with the uncleans as well too, Dan kind of shines a bit, and I was like, hell yeah, brother, you know, like let's get aggressive in this bitch. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty awesome. So I guess I
think that's an easy answer too, or the easy answer would be for people to relate emotionally to it, or whatever feelings they get. I think the big difference is, like Josh said, we focus more on the song rather than individual parts. So the songs are shorter, the solos are shorter. Whereas with our previous project, it was more of a musician's band. So people that weren't musicians, we were probably kind of playing over their heads, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, a little too technical for certain people. There's nothing wrong with that.
I got to give Steve credit, though, because Steve actually sat down one day and lined up all our songs in the current album process it is right now. And you can actually hear the songs evolve as you go through the album. Mm-hmm. It will not end the way that it starts.
Yeah.
Is the best way I can describe it. So the beginning is going to be kind of the softer side, and it's almost like a rage explosion to the end.
Yeah.
So when you hear some of that aggressive stuff, I mean, the second half of the album is not going to be your grandma's album.
Yeah. No,
there's actually 2 songs that have a 7-second scream in each one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Granny doesn't like that one. But no, yeah, I think that's very indicative of what I heard today. You know, not expecting what I heard from, you know, expecting maybe more of what Modern Day Zombie sounded like, but going through track by track, you guys kind of talking with me through it and stuff like that, you definitely hear that there is just not one singular sound, multiple sounds, but have some very like-minded qualities throughout each song, but still giving us something a little bit different for each song. So with that being said, come to my last question. How excited are you guys to get back to actually playing a show? I feel like this is the best question to end on.
I'd do it tomorrow.
This has been the hardest thing that we've ever had to do music-wise, is sit on this group for 2 years, not let a lot of people know that this was going on, just honing the process to the point where we were happy with the quality and quantity with what we were coming out with. So this has probably been the hardest thing to do. So excited doesn't even begin to describe it.
Being in 2 different groups, you know, Paragon Theorem and Vision Within, both groups having our different followings, and putting this group together, you know, you know, to meld this really good sound, and sitting on it for 2 years has been like this pressure cooker. But I will say this, and I will promise your listeners that the live sound will blow you away. If you like the album, it pales in comparison to what you will hear live. Mm-hmm. The energy that exudes in that room when we play on a weekly basis, if I could tap that, we could energize a city, man. And I think that if somebody comes to our show, it will not fail to disappoint. We will leave them elated and wanting more.
Sure. And we have plenty more to give, too. Because like I said, we already have, in the background of things, we already have 4 or 5 songs kind of written and ready to lay down for the second record. So we're not ever going to slow down, and our kind of mode is 100 miles an hour or nothing. So we won't do it unless we can do it 100.
We're on a mission, man.
No, for sure. Steve, after like going through what you went through, man, how much more does it mean to you now to have the opportunity to know soon you're going to be playing shows again, man? How does that feel?
It feels great, because there was many times where I could have just like completely fallen off the wagon.
Exactly.
And, like went down. I'm coming up on 5 years totally clean and sober, and
congratulations, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, but between the pandemic and
almost dying
health crisis and
yeah, for sure.
So being able to push out some music and perform it is going to be
man,
unbelievable.
Yeah, no, and it just, I don't know, for me now and hearing your story, it just I feel so excited for you guys, because it's just like, and hearing that and hearing everything it took to get to this point, now we're here. I think a lot of people forget that there was a moment here where we're questioning, do we get back to normal life? You know what I'm saying? Quote unquote.
I think it's going to have those quotes for a long time.
Yeah, for sure, man. Because there's always going to be a subsection. You don't know what you're going to walk into with shows. You're going to walk into shows where certain number of people are going to be vaccinated, certain people are going to not be vaccinated, and that's everybody else's business for them to handle. And whatever the case is are you going to get those opportunities to play out in front of those people, and how much longer are we going to put ourselves in jeopardy? Because as fast as we're back to it is as fast as we can go back into not playing shows again. It's a scary thought for any band. I don't care who you are, man. And just even myself, and I'm only doing studio project music right now at this point. It's kind of nerve-wracking to kind of think, how are people going to accept it? How are people going to feel about it? Not having it, performed live for them, or, having the ability to listen to it, and what that's going to look like at this point, but it really sounds like you guys have kind of figured out something that works for you in the middle, in a combination of media and a combination of getting ready to play out live, man.
Innovate or die. That's the 2 options, right? You got to innovate or just don't exist.
My wife has the same thing with her job where, she does taxes, and a lot of these older people that do taxes are in their 60s, and they just don't understand how a computer works. But unfortunately, that's the way we're going.
It's also generational.
Not exactly our demographic anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. But in the sense of, it's just like, like what he said, you're going to have to either learn how to adjust to what the new world is,
or watch it go by. See
exactly. Ya. And wonder what happened. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
That's a Steely Dan lyric.
And now we're full circle.
And on that note, we're going to end, man. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. I appreciate you guys. Shout out to you guys helping me get set up with the audio and stuff like that. And then, I appreciate you guys. Real quick, where can they find you on social media?
So vnvrocks.com, that website right there will get you to all of the other social media. It'll get you to our videos. It'll get you to our shows. Just go to vnvrocks.com, because that is the place that has all of the information. If you're other bands out there right now who are wondering what you're going to do with shows, reach out to us so we can put one together, because we're open.
VNV is just the letters V, letter N, letter V.
Yep.
Rocks.com.
And just to put this out there for the other local bands, we want to work with you. We want you to work with us. We want to bring the scene back. So let's do this together.
No, for sure. And once again, great note to end on. So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you. I know you guys got to get to practice and I got to get home. Thank you guys once again. All right.
Thank you.